to come into the chat. Welcome to drvoicetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. So guess what, everybody? I know you guys are going to be really excited to see that I am joined this week by the one and only Dr. Claud+Anderson. Dr. Anderson is not just a great friend and respected colleague, but he's also an extraordinary author and thinker. He's written several books that everybody should read, especially now during the pandemic when you got your children at home. First books I recommend you have your children read are the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and the Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. So I got Dirty Little Secrets and more Dirty Little Secrets. So I got all your books right here, Dr. Anderson, by the way. I just want to show you. I keep them right next. I keep them over here in my Powernomics corner. And the only other book I have near your book is Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. And so that's my Power Warrior corner. And I got a statue because I always believe as a Black man, I got to be a warrior. So I got this statue I got in China, this like a Chinese warrior right here. And then I have.
Is that mine or yours?
Is that this is all mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I got lots of a lot of my Black Power stuff over here. So this is my Black Power corner, and it's a lot of energy over here. Just a lot of Power Warrior energy for me. So your book is right there. That's my favorite book, my top book. So anyway, how you doing today?
You read Black Labor, White Wealth?
Did I read it?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Actually, Black Labor, White Wealth was the first of your books that I read. I read it on an airplane. It changed my life.
Good. That's so good. Very good.
Yeah. So Dr. Anderson, let's just start from the beginning. First of all, how are you? How you feeling? How's life going for you right now?
Well, right now it's rough, as I said, and I'm sorry I've been into a health ditch for about the last 8 months, but I'm hopeful I'll come out of it. I know most of my adversaries out there, I know they're just hoping I never come out of it, and but I'm gonna work my way out of it. And it's I was given some blood pressure medicine they're called fliconine, and I don't want any Black person, anybody approach you, any doctor says I'm gonna give you some fliconine, you shoot them and cut them. Don't ever take that. But that stuff is what sort of messed me up and messed up my nervous system, where I get false signals sometime, at night or something, sensations that don't exist. So I've been trying to work my way out of it. But and I'm thinking very seriously about a $50 to $100 million lawsuit. So that's what I'll be working on.
Oh wow. Wow. Well, I hope that works out for you. I'm very sorry to hear that. And so let me ask you this. First of all, I'm going to ask everybody who's watching, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? If you are comfortable joining that organization, put yes in the chat. If the organization makes you uncomfortable, put no in the chat. I want to get a sense of how you all feel about Black Lives Matter and the organization, and whether or not this is something that you would feel comfortable participating in. Because Dr. Anderson, you and I were talking about Black Lives Matter before this discussion, and you felt that Black Lives Matter was something that the people had to be warned about. So do you want to just take it from the top and let me know what you're thinking about that?
Well, I was thinking several things. First of all, directly, I want to commend a lot of the people that was out there pushing the Black Lives Matter. I think they did an excellent job of getting the nation's attention. And I'm proud of them doing that. And I hope to keep it, do whatever they can continue doing to get, to keep us fixed on Black issues. And I'm proud of the fact they say Black lives. They didn't say everybody's life or midgets or humpbacks, anybody else. It's just Black Lives Matter. I appreciate that from them, and I commend them for that. And but I think that there's ways that they could have improved it. I think they could have improved the effectiveness of what they were doing if they had not been so far afield from what the real issues are. And that's the problem I have with them. They're too far off and too broad. And what that does is leads them down the same track, same track that Black folks have gone down 2 or 3 times in history in the United States. But to get all involved in issues that are symbolic and ceremonious and have nothing to do with changing the major problems with Blacks in America. And so therefore, what I want to do right quick is ask you to do this with your listeners. Ask them right quick and ask for one or two who can tell you what is the primary purpose of the Black Lives Matter and what was the goals of it. And I want you to tell me what they said now, then we're gonna go after that. And I'll pick up talking with you. Ask your listeners that. Can they send you that?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody, I don't know if you heard that question or not. And Dr. Anderson, you and I can talk, and then I can document what everybody says. But what do you think? Maybe in like one or two words, what do you all see as the primary objective of Black Lives Matter? Like, what do you see as the goal, the end game? How do we know that we got what we wanted from Black Lives Matter? So you guys put the answer in the chat, and while you all answer that question, I want to remind you all that that the Black Stock Market Weekend starts tonight at 8 o'clock. So if you want to join us, go to blackstockmarketweekend.com. That's blackstockmarketweekend.com. So let me ask you this, Dr. Anderson. You know, one of the things I always think about when I think about what the Black Lives Matter movement seemed to represent, they talked a lot about what they call defunding the police. That the police brutality was a terrible issue, which I think we can agree on that police brutality is a problem. You've talked about how police started with the slave patrols and then things like that, and the patty rollers. I think that was the term you used, and so we can all agree on that. Now, do you feel that that agenda is that there should be more to that, or do you feel that they also are just kind of all over the place? Because I know a lot of people went to the Black Lives Matter website and felt like it was sort of a black way of pursuing a white liberal agenda. We talking about LGBT and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that in terms of what you're seeing from Black Lives Matter?
Well, I have the same thoughts that I had back in 1960, late 1957, 58, when the civil rights movement started, and when Martin Luther King jumping on an issue down in the South, is that your primary purpose, what I've discovered in all my years in government and over education for a state and the chairman for economics for governors and with 2 presidents and running campaigns, you should stick with the primary issue. And the issue should be, what was the purpose of slavery? And see if that matches up with what the Black Lives Matter people are saying. What was the purpose of slavery? Slavery was a system that was put in place where this country founded documents that put blacks into a caste system. As it says, subordinate to a class. It's a caste system blacks are locked into in the United States Constitution on that document. So blacks are always going around quoting about what the Constitution said for them, nigger rights. They don't have any rights in the first Constitution that was initiated and ratified in 1789. They have no rights and privileges. Now, what was the purpose of slavery? Slavery was to put blacks into a caste system, then to systematically maldistribute almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, land, minerals, income, businesses, rights, privileges, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society, period. That's it. Before you do anything else, that's what you should be focused on. That's your basic thing you should be focusing on. Now, you just indicated to me that a lot of the major issue right now is police reform. Now, you tell me how focusing on police reform is going to correct those things I just articulated. How do you correct the wealth maldistribution in this country? By talking about police reform, or about land. Blacks have a deficit in land ownership, a deficit in income, a maldistribution of their resources. How are you going to correct that? Police reform can't do black folks any good unless you've gone back to the basic things I'm talking about. And that is, go back to the primary thing. What controls the police? The police now, in a vertical order, the police is on the 3rd floor in a vertical 5-story building. They're on the 3rd floor. The 2nd floor underneath the police is the political structure. That's who controls the police. Everything from the Supreme Court to the Congress and down in all state legislatures. That's what controls the police and the city mayors. And who controls them? It's the economics on the 1st floor. Economics controls all of those things. So why would you spend so much time and energy, messing around with police reform when you can control the police on the 3rd floor by first controlling the economics? That's why you've not seen any major things going on. The police are not shooting wealthy Jews or industrialists. They're not shooting white women. They're not shooting Asians. They're not shooting American Indians. They're not, the only people they're shooting are the people who are the lowest in the income level and the power structure. And that's the people that's down on the bottom, all that. On the bottom, and that's black folk. Because black folk now, why don't blacks have an economy? That's because the white folks did that intentionally. They maldistributed the resources, and blacks were set free in this country, were deprived of the first thing they should have had, was to have some land. And the radical Republicans told them that in 1865, that you cannot just set black folks free. I don't hear this in the Black Lives Matter thing. You cannot set black folks free and expect any major significant change in race matters if you just turn them loose. And minimally, they must have 40 acres, a mule, and $100 each. That's minimum. They say without that, they'll still be slaves. Now, I haven't heard that been mentioned. So why is the issue right now for facing and confronting primarily the lack of wealth? The lack of wealth. And what I'm gonna do again, I think I showed you my chart about last one on one of your previous shows. Excuse me a second.
Hey everybody, if you're watching, hit the thumbs up button, by the way, if you haven't done that yet. And Dr. Anderson, while you do that, I'm gonna read some of the responses that I'm seeing. Okay. Mo Money says that he believes Black Lives Matter is trying to destroy black families. Let me see here. Let's see, in a couple of words, I'm looking to see, I'm trying to scroll up here. I think I saw somebody just put LGBT rights. What else? What's in here? Defund the police. Yeah, it seems like that's a lot. Like when you talk about just white liberalism in blackface. That's what I call it. Just whatever the white liberal issues are, those are the Black Lives Matter issues. And it almost seems like it's a big type of, almost like a type of quid pro quo, the type that we play with the Democratic Party, but not effectively, that says, if we help you on this one issue, you got to help us on all these other issues. You know, like, and you know, it's always going to circle back around to everybody needs to show up and vote for Joe Biden, you know, in the election, you know, stuff like that. And I think a lot of people are getting off of that boat. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you are in alignment with Black Lives Matter as an organization. I know we all agree that Black Lives Matter is true as a concept, right? We know everybody's like, our lives matter the most to us because we're black. We got to take care of ourselves first. But as an organization, give me a yes or no in the chat if you are in alignment with the organization. So Dr. Anderson, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate that you're right on target. Now, what I'm gonna do is show you this chart that I showed you in a previous presentation. You see that big heavy blue line there? Is it backwards to you?
No, it says share of all the net worth held by each race. And I imagine the blue is the white people. Can y'all see that? Give us a yes if you see that chart that we're looking at right now.
Now that's the wealth in America. Wealth in America right now, that's what whites own is the blue. Okay? What green is, again, see what it says on the chart, the green is?
The green, who's the green? Green is other.
Oh, that's others. Hispanics are the orange and blacks are the red. That's the wealth. Now, wealth is your opportunities. You can march all you want to and get all kind of symbolic recognition and ceremonious recognition. We got a Black Lives Matter Plaza. How does having a Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C., how's it going to elevate us? What we have to do, I want my Black Lives Matter people to get a little stronger than they are right now and say, we want the wealth. Wealth is in the land. And how can they get wealth off the Black Plaza out there? Now, blacks own one half, and red is 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in America. And Americans, and that means that that's where it was during slavery. When blacks came out of slavery, guess what? At that time, they had 1/2 of 1% of the wealth, and that was only about a little over 100,000 black folk. And they were so quasi-free, they could steal the companies and get 1/2 of 1%. Now here we are 150 years later, you're still in the red on 1/2 of 1% of the wealth. It's wealth that determines your opportunities. It's what you own and control, Dr. Watson. If you don't own and control it, that means you're going to be a guest, G-U-E-S-T, in what somebody else owns and controls. If someone else on that first floor owns and controls everything, you own all the buildings, the hotels, the restaurants, the airlines, the boats, the ships, and everything. You are a guest. And so the first thing that I wish my Black Lives Matter people would focus on how to help Black folk change and reverse what happened during slavery and correct that maldistribution. Now, that's the wealth is the first thing they should be focusing on. Now, where is all the wealth stored? Wealth is stored in what white folks said in the Constitution. It's stored in the land. Land is the greatest producer of wealth. And that's why they said they're going to set up a system. They said we're going to control the land. And the whole immigration policies are based on who gets the land. And that's why they say they're going to base it on the land. At that time, the United States had over 3 billion acres of land across the United States. And the people, the so-called founding fathers say, well, if that's what we're going to use to gain wealth, shoot, we're going to start it off. And I said this to you before. George Washington says, I want 100,000 acres of free land for myself and my family. That's what George Washington said. Then Thomas Jefferson said the same thing. He says, you give George 100,000 acres of free land, I want 100,000 acres of free land. He got 100,000 acres of free land. And Patrick Henry was always boasting about give me liberty or give me death. He says, yes, give me liberty, give me death, but also give me some damn land. And he got 65,000 acres of free land. And every white person coming to the United States was entitled to pick up. Now, watch this now. Then they set these immigration laws in 1790. Congress set the first immigration laws to invite all these people to come to America. And what are they coming to America for? They come into America for what they call the American dream. The American dream. Now, what is the American dream? Why doesn't I would love to see the Black Lives Matter focus on that. What is the American dream? What the American dream wasn't having police shooting Black folk. What was the American dream? The American dream was that anybody coming to America who could be classified as whites was entitled to get free land. So they came here, and this is how they must address these issues. And I started talking about reparation. They came here as freeloaders. You know what a freeloader is? Freeloader. They came here to freeload. What were they coming here to freeload off of? They wanted land, and free Black labor. So these whites like Connolly and Trump, their ancestors were freeloaders. And don't let them keep buying this stuff about Black folk. You tell them you came here to freeload, to get over on Black folk by getting free land. And each one would immediately got, first group came in, they got 650 acres of free land each. And wow. then for homesteading, they got another 150 acres of land. Then they've got another 150 acres of land for every slave they own. That's how they got all the land. That's why from Maine all the way to San Diego, California, whites only control 99% of all the damn land. And it's particularly around, if you go around the coast, any place, all the land is owned by whites. That's where the wealth is. And why the land is so wealthy is because, Dr. Watkins, in the land is what? You got timber. That's where your timber is. That's where your gold is. That's where your chrome is. That's where your bauxite is. That's where your oil is. Everything you want of value was in the land. That's why the railroads, when they start up, you had 11 railroads start up. They got 24 million acres of free land given to them. They didn't buy it. Southern Railroad, rest of them, they didn't buy all that land. You see these tracks going all across America. They got it free. And the same thing with the last land rush in America in 1863. They say Black folk are not people of color. They don't qualify for land. And so Europeans poured in here and they picked up 24 million acres of free land in 24 hours. And so now that's who got all the land. And that's why when you go out west, you see these farmers out there with agriculture farms and make up 50 and 60,000 acres of land. And you see that in those Western movies. And all the big ranches they got all the wealth. Now you can have police reform all you want to. You can talk about racial equality all you want to. But you're going to have racial equality, you better start talking about reversing the purpose of slavery. Slavery was totally 1,000% successful in maldistributing all the land, the resources, privileges, and rights, and everything else into the hands of the whites. That's why when slavery ended, the average white person in America had 3,500 times more wealth than the average black coming out of slavery. 3,500 times. And now here we are 150 years later. Guess what? They still got 3,500 times more wealth than black folk. Nothing has changed. Let me be a little more specific than that. In terms of land, blacks came out of slavery looking for 40 acres with a mule and $100. They did not give them one damn acre. And so what black folk wound up, the few that got a few these lands of acreage of land, or like off the coast of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, like those islands, whites went back there and took that away from them. So, in 1880, after the Civil War, blacks at that time, how much land black owned that time? They owned 1.6% of all the land in the United States. And guess what? In Detroit, Michigan, as an example, a major metropolitan city, just checking now in Detroit. Guess what blacks own in Detroit now? That was a big that was a 92% black city when I was checking on it. 92% blacks. And guess what blacks own in that whole metropolitan area in terms of commercial land development and development land? The prime land on the river all the way to 8 Mile Road. They own 1.6%. And guess you know who owns all the commercial property, all in that development area for the metropolitan area for Detroit, Michigan? Three white families. 3 white families own 99% of all the properties, valuable prime property in Detroit, Michigan, 150 years later. And that's made up of 3 families. One is the Maroon family that owns a bridge going from Detroit into Canada. And the whites are trying to buy the tunnels going from Detroit into Canada so they can make money off of that. Whites took over the golf course. They own Julius Arena, Cobo Hall. They own the garbage, they taking over the water system, sewage system. And guess what? That's one is called the Maroon family that owns the bridge and the land. The other is Ilitch, the Ilitch family. They own all the land downtown. You know why? Because black mayors gave them all that land. They didn't give it to black folk. You got black folk in positions of power and resources that should have been trying to put some of that land into black hands to reverse the purpose of slavery. They put it into the wrong people's hands. They gave all the land downtown in Detroit, Michigan to Ilitch. Ilitch was just a white man who had a little small pizza restaurant. Now he owns all the land from downtown all the way to the university system and miles of land, prime land. He owns it. He owns the casino. He owns the stadium there for the football games and baseball games. And the third family that owns all the land is a guy that gets tied up with the sports team in Cleveland, Ohio. So 3 white families own 99% of the land in a city that's 92% black. Because anybody runs for politics, they never focus on reversing what slavery put into place. And so they don't focus on trying to get land into black folks' hands. And so that's why blacks don't own any land. And that's where the wealth is. And then businesses, they don't focus on trying to get businesses for black folk. They want to try to get jobs for black folk. I tell them, quit trying to prepare black folks to have a job, prepare them to have a business. And if you got a business, then they put that business into their own communities, then they produce jobs, resources, products, and services, and goods on a tax base for their own damn people. They don't focus on that. So what I'm saying, I identified all the things that I think Black Lives Matter could really help black folk if they could shift their focus away from stuff that is symbolic, like police reform. Police reform is built into the Constitution and the Second Amendment. You can't get rid of it unless you change the damn Constitution. How are you going to get rid of it? You can't change it. Whites will always have the authority to be able to exercise the Second Amendment. What did the Second Amendment say? They put it in there saying that you are here as a police force called plantation police. Your primary purpose is to monitor black folk as patty rollers, police, and make sure that there are no threat to the white community, that they do not threaten white property and white lives. And lastly, and cause a revolt or any kind of revolution that will put black folk into a better, stronger position. That's what it's for. And the last point is, don't be focused on equality. You cannot get equality in a race-based society. And it's impossible. When you go to a race, whether it's a foot race, automobile race, bicycle race, any kind of a race, horse race, You don't go to a race looking for equality. Our people, the only people that want to go to something that's negative and try to convert it to be something positive. A race is designed to reward, recognize those who win. That's why we never get anything. We're always looking for equality. Black folk now got to get out of the ditch and look for not equality. You got to be looking for more than equality, because right now you don't own anything. The wealth gap is widening, not getting smaller. You don't own and control anything. You better wake up and smell the coffee. Then I'm gonna give you some points, things about a few things I want blacks, your people in particular, to remember and fight for and argue for as we go into this year's political arena. This is the last chance blacks gonna have, as far as I can see, to try to correct purposes of slavery, what they did to black folk as a caste, put them into a caste system they can't get out of. Nobody else in there. Women not in the caste system. Hispanics not in the caste. Hispanic is not in the caste system. They're classified as whites. Asians not in the caste system. They're classified as whites. American Indians not in the caste system. In 1890, they were classified as whites. Everybody in this country is classified as whites except blacks. That's why blacks are the only one in the caste system. You can't go out and try to take care of everybody and try to keep your focus on your own group self-interest and hold tight and fight for that. Don't worry about trying to save the world. You don't have the power or resources to be able to control the world. Try to control the things for black folk and promote your own group self-interest. Like I said before, as a pilot, I tell you again, we lose cabin pressure at 30,000 feet or at 10,000 feet at night. And what you do, you put the mask on when it falls down over your head, put it on yourself first. And don't you get up and saying, are there the midgets and humpbacks and crippled and left and dumb and people back there need a mask? No, I tell them, sit your ass down and put it on your own self and your own people first. And right now, the Black Lives Matter is spreading themselves too far, too wide, and trying to help everybody and not being strictly focused on black self-interest and correcting the primary purposes of slavery that was put on black folk. That's what happened in 1960 with the Civil Rights Movement. That's why social integration failed. It will always fail. It will continue to fail.
Everybody, in case you just came in, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud+Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. While you are at home with your children during the pandemic, you have to educate your kids, and now we have no choice. We can't depend on massa to do it anymore. So I encourage you to give your children an essential education by ordering a library pack from Dr. Anderson. If you go to Powernomics.com, he's got a library pack that has all 5 books and a DVD for $99. So for $99, you've got enough material to educate your kids for the rest of the year or for as long as you want. And this is a big part of the essential education. A big chunk of education is reading, writing, and math. And so this will cover a lot of that, as well as Black history and Black economics. So in the Black Business School also, don't forget that we also have a Black Business School for children at blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. That's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. So go to Powernomics.com, check out Dr. Anderson's library pack. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done it yet, please hit the thumbs up button. And yes, Anthony, this is a live video, but it doesn't matter if it's live or recorded. When Dr. Anderson's talking, I don't really answer a lot of questions. I'd rather, I want to hear him speak. He's the teacher, so we got to listen. I want to say thank you to those of you who made donations. A couple of you did, and my computer's acting funny, so I can't say your name from the donation. But I will say this, in the Black Business School, speaking of Black business, we are giving free advertising to Black-owned businesses. All you got to do is go follow the Black Business School on Instagram. And so I've given you guys the link to the Black Business School on Instagram. If one of the moderators could actually put that in there, it's the real Black Business School. And we do Black business shout outs. And whenever we do a Black business shout out, we'll shout out your business on the podcast. So just follow the Black Business School on Instagram. And in fact, I'll mention a couple of businesses that I just saw on the page. Kids Creation NOLA. It's spelled K-I-D-Z Creations NOLA. Everything's with a Z and a K. Now I'm going to say this, Kids Creation NOLA. Make sure that you might want to find a URL that's easy to pronounce so that when I say it, people won't misspell it, because I see your creativity in how you spelled it. But when you spell it with Z's instead of an S or a K instead of a C, people might not get that right. So I want people to go to your business. Another one is Powell Family Chiropractic in Sarasota, Florida. A Sense of Serenity. They sell candles as well as, let's see, it's a student. Oh, they're a student of the Black Stock Market Program. Awesome, awesome. So asenseofserenity.com, asenseofserenity.com. So feel free to support that Black-owned business. Okay, guys. So let me ask you all this question. If you could just give me a response in the chat on this. When Dr. Anderson is speaking about equality and he's talking about chasing equality versus actually trying to win. I hope that you understand what he's saying there. He's saying that, you know, our goal is to win. You don't enter a race so you can tie. And also we must talk about economics. So I want you to write in the chat the word win, W-I-N. Everybody write win in the chat, because you want to win. You want your children to win. And nobody's going to give you a win. Nobody's going to just hand that to you. You know, there's no affirmative action package that's going to just give you a win. You got to take that win through education, through investment, all the things we talk about, buying real estate, things like that. Second piece, the second word I want you to write, and after you write the word win, W-I-N, also write the word economics. Economics is the key to all of this. If you solve the economic problem, you solve a lot of the police brutality problem. Because last time I checked, the people being shot by the police are not wealthy Black people or Black people that have businesses, business owners, or they wouldn't have shot somebody from, you know, the Nation of Islam, where they learn to stick together and they educate each other. What they do is they catch people who don't have support or defense or protection. They can't go pay a good lawyer to defend themselves. They don't have other Black people around to support them. So those are the two words for today. One is the word win, W-I-N. Type win in the chat if you agree with me that we want our kids to win. Second word is economics. Type economics in the chat if you agree with this philosophy. And also hit the thumbs up button. So Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this question. So there's a lady named Jane Elliott, and we talked about her earlier. And I was telling you about her. She's an anti-racism speaker. She's a white lady that makes a lot of money talking about basically saying the things that white people need to hear. And she was, a lot of Black folks got a little bit upset with her because they asked her about, reparations, and that Black people deserve to have reparations. Now, I've been looking for an exact quote on what Elliott said, and I cannot find the exact quote, but I know a lot of people are upset because she does not feel that Black people deserve reparations. She also talked about Native Americans getting their reparations first, so they should be ahead of the line in front of us, things like that. And I'm gonna try to find the exact quote so I can make sure I quote her accurately. What goes through your mind when you hear about that, in terms of, first of all, the fact that everyone seems to pay attention to what the white woman says, but if she were a Black woman, I think if she was saying the same stuff, nobody would listen. But then second of all, this person who's a supposed ally of Black people, when you get around to the topic of reparations, she, Bernie Sanders, and some of the others don't believe Black people deserve reparations. What just goes through your mind when I just tell you about that?
Again, boy, you asked some good questions, Aaron. That again goes back to something. I give you one doctrine of called the doctrine of unequal exchange, which is one of the primary doctrines that started the whole thing about race in the early 15th centuries that went after Africa. But let's bring it up to date. Let's go from the 15th century up to 1600s. When they came into America, they dropped another doctrine called, the state of Maryland initiated. It's called the doctrine of exclusion. The doctrine of exclusion. The doctrine of exclusion was passed by a Maryland colony in about 1638. Okay, and what it says is that Black folk should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society, and consequently, when it gets to them, you practice the next doctrine. It comes up, doctrine of exclusion is the doctrine of unequal exchange. Now, in terms of reparations, now why in the world, that's backwards again. Why in the world would she be coming on to talk about giving reparations to Indians, of all people? And again, Black folk, and I would love to see the Black Lives Matter challenge some of these myths. Like for instance, the myth that somehow Indians are the most deprived people, the most injured people, the poorest people in America, the most deserving people. That is a bunch of crap. What most people don't know is that slavery could not have existed in the United States without the full, wholehearted support of Darien Indians. As soon as the tribes got here as pilgrims, when they started moving from calling themselves pilgrims to colonists, and by saying that they're going to be colonists, they said we're changing our basis not from religious practices, but now to own some land and resources in America. And so the colonists put out the first treaty in America called the New York Treaty in 1516, put out the saying basically that we're now going to try to solicit Indians, because right now with the black population at 50%, as we got further into slavery, and if they joined with Indians, the blacks that joined with Indians, they could have run those white colonists out of America and all the way back to Europe. And so the colonists went and met with the Indians and put out a treaty called the New York Treaty of 1516, which says now let's solicit the Indians and bring the Indians into our efforts, because we're going to try to own the land in this country. We're going to use blacks as a labor class. So when they started talking about that, Indians joined in, and the 5 civilized tribes eventually all participated. That's called the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminoles, Indians. They all joined in, and they called it 5 civilized tribes. They became civilized because they no longer felt a need to run through the woods looking for wild turkeys and deer to eat. When the whites in America in those treaties started saying, you sign a treaty with us, we'll give you some housing, we'll give you some guns, we'll give you some food, some clothing, and you can become civilized and get yourself a plantation and get yourself some slaves. So when that happens, all these treaties start including an inclusion in every treaty. Every treaty had an inclusion rewarding and recognizing Indians participate in the enslavement of black folk in America. And they all joined in and participated, and they got rewarded for it. The Indians, for instance, all the plantation owners, they were willing to set up a code which says we will play and reward Indians. We reward Indians because and that for every black who runs away from the plantation, if you Indians are chase him down in the woods and bring him back, we will pay you $25 if you bring him back alive, and we'll pay you $20 if you bring him back dead, but bring his scalp back with his ears attached to it. That's what a scalp, this whole thing about Indians scalping whites, it wasn't about scalping whites, it was about scalping black folk, bringing black folk back to the master and getting $20 for his scalp. And second to that was that the Indians got paid for torturing blacks. When a black ran off from a plantation out in the woods trying to struggle to get either to Florida and get over to the Bahamas, to those islands, or to get out west or go north to Canada, when Indians caught them, Indians would torture them. Indians tortured blacks. Runaway black slaves were caught, they were tortured before you cut their scalps off and cut their testicles off and hung them up on a damn fence pole. Now, they participated, and they had a policy called a black flag policy that was strictly talking about blacks. You're talking about Black Lives Matter. They had a damn black flag policy, which means if you catch a black person, kill him and bring it back to the master if you can, or bring it back and get some money for his ears and scalp. Later on, when the Civil War started, all the Indians joined in on that policy because what did they do? They signed an agreement with the Southern Confederacies, the Southern red states you're going to be voting for in this coming up election for the President of the United States. Those red states, that was called the Southern Confederacy. Those were the first terrorists in America. Their whole thing was to overthrow the country, just like what Trump is trying to do. They still the same people are pushing Trump to overthrow the country and break down and deregulate and cause confusion and chaos and weaken our society. This is the second opportunity that they've had, third rather, for them to try that. They tried it during the Civil Rights Movement in 1960. The Southern states, again, is trying to destroy the nation before they bring blacks up to an equal level. And that's why you got these same problems. And when they got rewarded and paid for it, and they joined the South with the Southern Confederacy, and they fought with the South to maintain slavery. People don't know that, and maybe this woman you're talking about, she doesn't know that Indians fought with with the South to maintain slavery in this country, and was slaughtering blacks. I don't call it slaughtering blacks when they caught them. Any black that was in the Union Army had an indication he's going to in the woods that he's going to support freeing blacks. He got killed because Indians owned slaves and they wanted to maintain their property value. They invested in slaves. The Cherokee was the biggest slave owner in the country of all the tribes. That's why the last slave to surrender after the Civil War ended, when these black folks started talking about June 10th, the last Southern general to surrender for the South was a Confederate, Cherokee Indian called Stan Waite. He was a general running the Indians army, and when they gave in, the Indians got Indians. Here's how the Indians got the land. They gave in But by that time, Congress had set up what was called the Freedmen Bureau. Are you familiar with that? Okay, the Freedmen Bureau. Freedmen Bureau was supposed to say, now that we're going to turn these blacks loose, and when they've been asking for 40 acres and a mule and $100, we're going to set up a Freedmen Fund to give them some of the things they're going to need. We're going to turn loose 5 million black folk, almost 5 million black people. 4.5, going to be, you can say 4.5 or 4 3/4, almost 5 million blacks. Turn them loose with no education, no land, no food, no clothes, no equipment, no education, no organization, no land, no animals, and no weapons. Because we passed the Second Amendment saying blacks could not own weapons. We're gonna turn them loose. Now they got to go out there and compete on their own. And when they set up that bureau, guess what? Again, Andrew Johnson followed Lincoln into the White House. And he says, don't give black folk a damn thing. Keep them under the doctrine of exclusion. Don't give them anything. Let them go out there and either root haul or die. And then didn't give them any damn land of any significance. But guess what? What they did then, they took the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was set up for black folk in 1965 and 1865 and 1866. The 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment was set up strictly and solely for black folk. It wasn't set up for genders. It wasn't set up for women. It wasn't set up for anything but black people. And at that point in time, what the military did, they went into all those Indian territories after the Civil War ended and made them sit down and draw up a treaty. They signed up, they called it 1866 Indian treaties. And in those treaties, they stipulated in those treaties with all those tribes that I just told you about, the 5 civilized tribes. Those are the 3 biggest tribes in the United States. All the other little tribes, the Sioux and the Wet Feet and the Apache and all those, they were underneath those. And so they said now that black folk under these treaties, a treaty is the highest level of law on the earth. A treaty is an international law. It says that black people, particular nation, black Indians, and any blacks who have been living in Indian territory or have been a prisoner of an Indian, that they're supposed to be treated in all manners similar to the way Indians are treated. Because Indians got classified then as whites. And black folks should have the same advantages that they should have, which means that every Indian tribe to give those black folks some money. And just in the Chickasaw Indians alone, the government gave them $65,000 to split up with some of the blacks on their reservation that they've been holding as hostages. And they never gave them a penny. But yet now, here's Obama and all these people, these very liberal whites now talk about what they're gonna do for Indians. Indians profited off of slavery. And then the Indians didn't have any land, but the government, all that land that it says the Indians fought with the South, they lost all the land. And the government says what we'll do now under the doctrine of exclusion is that we'll take the 14th Amendment and we'll spread it to you Indians. And say, you Indians now, you're entitled to some land. And they gave Indians what they call reservations. That's how they got all those reservations all over the country, all that land. It was given to them using the 14th Amendment was set up for black folk, which was really illegal. But they allowed it to happen. And then the Freedmen Fund, guess what? The Freedmen Fund, all the millions of dollars they put in there to feed and clothe those slaves who didn't have any job and any education. They also threw in the white Southerners. And so most of the money in the Freedmen Bank Fund was taken over by white Southerners. They got the food, they got the clothing. And guess what? White Southerners got all the land back. They got all the land back. All the land that they lost in the war with the North, and the North had controlled that land. They lost it, and they used the 14th Amendment to give it back to Southerners. That's why all the land in the South right now still owned by whites. The freeloaders that came in from Europe came to America to get free land and free labor, and they got it, and then it was given back to them after the Civil War. And Indians were still out there torturing black folk, bringing them back to the white master, and getting paid for it. And so right now today, black folks, why would black folk be, black folk are subsidizing, and why Obama was in office. He called 564 so-called white Indian chiefs to the White House every Christmas and gave them anything they wanted. But he didn't call not one black Indian. And not one black chief came, it was invited in 5 years. And each time he gave them $3.5 billion and Indians right now are still getting all kind of benefits through treaties, and that is illegal. You know why? Because all those treaties now that's giving all these benefits to Indians is illegal. Because when the Indians sided with the South to fight against the North, they violated a major condition in all those treaties, which says if you take up arms against the United States, all treaties are rendered null and void. The only treaty right now that should be between the United States and Indians is the 1866 Indian Treaty, which made native blacks, black Indians and blacks who had been lived on those Indian reservations and been prisoners, they should be treated in the same manner as the Indians, which means they should be given land now out of some of that land is owned by the Indians. They should be right now be getting money from the federal government through the Federal Indian Bureau in Washington, D.C. that gives up $27,000 every year to American Indians. Just like in the Seminoles down there, Seminole Indians right now, average one gets about $125,000 a year income in Florida from the rock casinos, from the casinos and the rock cafes. They get, and the Federal Indian Bureau, and poor blacks run around with about a $19,000 a year total income. These Indians now, and Indians are getting all that money by having casinos. And guess what the casinos are put up? In black neighborhoods through the doctrine of unequal exchange. And in Washington, D.C. right now, they were and built Indian casinos over in PG County, Prince George County, which was known as the most highest concentration of educated blacks in the country. It was in Prince PG County, right outside of Washington, D.C. It was the wealthiest blacks in America concentrated in PG County. Guess what? They go over and build casinos for Indians in PG County to suck the money out to go to Indians. And Indians right now out in all over the country are doing their best to try to keep blacks down and out. And I'm gonna close out by show you one thing here a second. And this here is a letter that the Indians sent to the White House, not into the White House, but to the Federal Indian Bureau and the Department of Interior. This letter here, you can't read it, but I'm just holding it up. And what it says in here, and this was in 1938. You know what they said? They say, how do we exclude black folk? How do we exclude, make sure that we never give black folk anything? And this letter, and it's about 4 or 5 pages, just bounced around. This is that signature authorizing to do it up here, the federal government. And they say, well, how do we keep blacks out? These are the Indian tribes. How do we keep the Indian commissions? How do we keep blacks from we know they still be getting everything we're getting from the government. Every year the government gives us all kind of things, all kind of rights to resources for oil and oil pipelines and everything else. They say what you do is that, finally they sent a letter back saying what you do is change the equation where those treaties said to any black or black Indians entitled to these benefits, you come up with, you get it approved that they have to show a certain quantity, a certain amount of Indian blood. Not just because they got Indian blood, they put out what's called a blood quantum law, which says they got to show they got 25% Indian blood, but they still not entitled to it. That was never in the treaty. They made that up. And what they did then is say that now we got this enacted and approved by Congress now in 1941. Now we'll never have to give black folk any damn thing. And right now, one of our lawsuits that I need these blacks to go out and start raising hell about, my lawsuits are in an appeal court right now in Washington, D.C. We're filing reparations for black folk based on the 1866 Indian treaties. It's in the appeal of black and reparations is not a legal issue. It's a political issue. The reason we can't get it because black folk are not pushing for it. That's what the black line of people should be saying. We're pushing now politically. We're pushing for reparations for black folks, starting first and foremost with what's already on the books. They owe black folk reparations from the 1866 Indian treaties and start giving it to them and compensate them for it. And I can give you a whole amount of money. I can break down the money, how much you've been getting it into the trillions of dollars. And the last one of that is that same thing if you read in the Black History Reader. They owe black folk all kinds of trillions of dollars for violating their rights by allowing Andrew Jackson to go into Florida and catch up all those runaway slaves. When slaves were running away in America, the myth was that they were running off to the north to go to Canada. That's a lie. Blacks might not have been educated, but weren't damn stupid. They were gonna go walk barefooted all the way from South Carolina and Georgia, all the way to Detroit and to Canada, when they can just go about 100 miles or so down the river and be into Florida. And the Spanish crown has said any black person, slave in America, who comes to Florida. Once he crossed the line into Florida, he is free. And he can own land and have all the rights and privileges of anybody else. He can enjoy them. And Andrew Jackson then was pressured by white slave owners to go down there and get him, bring him back. And that time, there were over 61,000 blacks living in Florida. Over 61,000 blacks living in, some of them come in from the islands to live in Florida. They were free in Florida. They were entitled to have land, to be able to vote, to have the richness and the wealth, just as it was said in the Constitution. But Andrew Jackson broke the law and went in and captured them and pulled them out and put them in with some Indians in what they call the Trail of Tears and marched them all the way from Florida all the way to Oklahoma. That was illegal. It's illegal because, first of all, in 1808, before he did that, there was an international law said it's against the law to bring a slave into America. And if you go down to Florida and capture those blacks and bring them back into America, you violated law, which means the government allowed him to do that, violate all those blacks' rights and bring them back in the United States as slaves and send them out to Oklahoma. That's tell Black Lives Matter to go after that. That was filed in the Adam and Otis Treaty. The Adam and Otis Treaty. It says that you cannot bring, that we're going to buy Florida and anything in Florida, and the blacks there are all free. Blacks are supposed to be free in Florida ever since way back in 1800s. And so between that and the 1866 Indian Treaty, that is trillions upon trillions of dollars that the government of the United States owed black folk. And I'm going to get into the third one because that'll make it too confusing, like on the Freedman banks and the $57 million that was stolen out of the banks by the government appointed administrators. All that's that's what I want to see the Black Lives Matter focus on. I don't give a damn about police reform because the Constitution says white people, white males between 18 and 45 got a right to carry a gun at any time and to watch and monitor black folk and to do whatever's necessary to protect white lives and white property. If the Black Lives Matter don't go after the Constitution, it's a waste of time. And more importantly, they must go after the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court is the one that's been backing all this terrorism in America against black folk. The most racist organization in America is the United States Supreme Court. What you talking about? You're talking about, well, we're marching in Washington now and for justice. You can't get no damn justice in Washington, D.C. with the 17th Second Amendment in effect. And it's been, and because why can't you? Because you see, the Supreme Court was made up of white slave owners. The first 57 people put in as Supreme Court justices were slave owners. Then the next 6 or 7, 5 of them were racist. That's why on the Supreme Court right now, you got about 8 whites and one outrightly white, and you got one white man pretending he's black sitting on the Supreme Court. That's why you're not gonna get into justice out of the Supreme Court unless you go after the Supreme Court. That's what the Black Lives should be going. Go after the Supreme Court and stop them from the racist practice. The United States Supreme Court is a guardian of racism in America. They have never approved any damn thing that's ever designed to benefit black folks solely and singly to help black folk. Don't talk about the desegregation decision about busing. That again was rigged. They knew that integration would not help black folk. That's why they approved it. And so I can go on and on, but I've given you a long lecture now. And my time
this is all right. This is very helpful. Everybody, let Dr. Anderson know that you appreciate when he comes in and talks about these things. Just say something in the chat to let him know how much you appreciate him, because I know I appreciate it. Because this is not we don't know this. We don't hear this stuff in school. We get propaganda in school, and the best, really the propaganda is very real. And I think that this pandemic is a blessing in disguise because it's forcing us to get our own education that we want. It's like being forced to cook your own food now. You can't eat the poison no more. So I personally think that this is a great opportunity for everybody watching. Just keep on educating your own kids. Just you're doing it now. Keep doing it more and more. Everybody who doesn't know, every Thursday at noon, the Black Business School offers free homeschool Q&A sessions for any parent that wants to learn how to homeschool your child. Nomalanga Mushali Moses is a homeschool expert. She does free homeschool Q&As every Thursday. Somebody type this in the chat, please, so others can see it. You can go to theblackHomeschoolNetwork.com, theblackHomeschoolNetwork.com, and register for the next session. We want you to educate your kids forever. Our core values are: we believe Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black businesses. And speaking of Black businesses and creating our own jobs, Dr. Anderson's books, his greatest work, his life's work, which he did for you, can be found at Powernomics.com. Here are all his books. See, Dr. Anderson, I got all your books right here, and this is really, you can't hardly see it because it's blending in with the background a little bit, but yeah, Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, The Black History Reader. These are great books for your family and for your children. So if you want to go take a look, he's got a whole library pack for just $99. You can get all the books and the DVD. You go to Powernomics.com. That's Powernomics.com. Please hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it yet. Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you one last question before I let you go. You and I were talking earlier about, it's interesting that you're bringing in a whole different conversation about the Native American Black relationship. Like, most Black people don't know that many people in the Native American community participated in slavery. They don't know that because we're trained to believe that they went through what we went through, or that they are our number one allies. So here's what I wanted to definitely ask you about. So Jane Elliott, I was looking around trying to find a quote for Jane Elliott. I could not get a written quote, but I talked to Vicki Dillard, who is a firecracker of a great Black woman, a brilliant Black woman. She comes on this channel sometimes. She loves you to death. And also Dual, Victoria Boyd, one of the moderators. They were going through an interview that Jane did, and I'm going to paraphrase what they sent over to me in the notes in the comments. I'm going to go watch that part of the video myself, y'all, but I'm going to paraphrase what happened there. Basically, Jane Elliott, who is an anti-racism speaker, she's one of the white saviors, so to speak, that Black folks love. You know, the white person that goes around talking about racism and they think it's great because a white person said it. Now, she's not a bad person, but one thing that she did say that caused a lot of people to be very concerned was when they started talking about, reparations and things like that. She said that she feels that, from what I have been told, I'm gonna go watch the video myself, but people have the impression that she feels that Native Americans should get their reparations first because they lost their land. And also that writing a check isn't gonna solve the problems in the United States when it comes to race. Can you kind of speak to that directly?
Yes, first of all, let's correct her again because she's wrong. First of all, that Native American, American Indians not entitled to reparations. They were slave holders, just like the whites were slave holders. And so if you're going to excuse them for being participating as slave holders of Black folk, then why don't you excuse all the whites in this country and around the world? Because see, everybody in the world, every ethnic group, every religious group, every culture group, every language group has empowered and enriched themselves off enslaving Black folk and expropriating their labor for profit. That's what I told you about the doctrine of exclusion, which says our primary purpose is to have Black folk for personal comfort and enrichment. And that's that was in the 1638 decision called the doctrine of exclusion, right? That was put in effect by a policy by the state of Maryland. And that they all do the same thing. They want to profit off anything that should be going to Black folk and redirect it into their personal interests rather than dealing with the problems of Black folk. That's why the problems of Black folk have never been resolved. It never gets to that point. The minute you take, if a truck runs over a Black man, they're gonna go out there and say, we gotta stop these trucks from running over minorities. We gotta stop the trucks from running over crippled people, deaf, dumb people, anything. People with humpbacks, don't let those trucks hit them. They never wanna focus, they never want to connect the cause with the remedy, the solution. And so that's a part of that little game. And in this book, Powernomics, as an example here, there's a section there where I talked about the American Indians. The Indians right now were not entitled. The land did not belong to the Indians. The Indians didn't have any contracts to own any land in America. The land was free, didn't own to them. If the land belonged to anybody, when the colonists came over, it would belong to Black folk. You know why? The first people on earth were Black folk. Those are the first people on earth. And the Bible said that the earth was created and given to the first people he created, which was Black people. And they put that in the Garden of Eden, which is in Africa. That was the first human beings on earth. And so the earth was created in the image for Black folk. Now, how could Indians get ahead of Black folk and they claim the land and Black folk were the first? That is a myth, because you see that those present day so-called Indians, they only came into existence in about about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, when Asians crossed across the Bering Straits, came across into Canada, then came down through Canada, down into the United States. And you already had blacks in the United States. They were called Folsom people, particularly as they have a Folsom, Arizona, Folsom prison, where we find all those artifacts that go all the way back to Africa. Blacks were the first human being. Those Asians came in and they intermixed with black folk. That's why Indians didn't have slant eyes. And then instead of having yellow skin, they had brown or bronze skin, just like in the Bible. Christ had bronze skin. And so if anybody had owned America, it would have been the Folsom people were black, or the blacks coming out of Africa. Blacks out of Africa had been in America 16,000 years before the Asians crossed over into the United States. And so, but they always want to pick somebody other than black folk to reward and compensate and give recognition to and appreciation to. But the American Indians, they all sided with the Confederacy. They never did anything for black folk. Black folk were the engines that drove economic development in this country. You go right now and line up all the things you want that the American Indians did to develop this nation. Go write on a yellow pad and send it to me. You tell me what they've done to enhance this country. The only thing they became was a part of an Indian ethos into American society, and that didn't come about until about the 1920s, when they began to appreciate. They started putting Indians on a penny on the head of a nickel and stuff like that. But black folk were the people that did all the development. That's why my lawsuit goes back to something that's very important. I told you to go after they should go after the Supreme Court. They should go after the United States Congress, because in 1908, because of the Dawes Commission that took names of all the Dawes, all the Indians, black Indians in the country. Blacks owned a lot of land that they'd gotten since slavery. And but in 1908, the United States Congress did something that's unforgivable, because initially in the concepts of the commission, you could not take Indian land from them starting about 1880s all the way up to about 1908. And black Indians had land all around the country then. And so one of our lawsuits is based on what happened to just one out there in Oklahoma. They had this one black man who's Catherine Latrice Brown out in California. Her granddaddy owned a large tract of land in Oklahoma. This is all barren land, okay? And when he died, his dad had left him the land and all stuff. He's a black Indian. He was only 12 years of age. Now he weren't, and so guess what the Congress said is that you whites now can go in there into Oklahoma and buy land now, but you can't buy it from those Indians now who have been classified as whites, but you can buy it from the black Indians. And they took that boy's land from him at 12 years of age, which is illegal. He was not an adult. He was not authorized. And the documents they had for the land transfer didn't even have his signatures on. He couldn't even write. He was only 12 years of age. They took all of his land, and then and so our lawsuit is using him. He's a point of the spear in my lawsuit, where they said blacks own land in Oklahoma and in the West. You can buy their land, even if they're black Indians. You can buy black Indians land, but you can't buy white Indians lands. And that's why the Indians got reservations out there. Blacks should have a right now to go on any reservation and be able to use any of the resources in there based on the Constitution. So all of your listeners right now should go look up the 1866 Indian treaties for the Seminoles, for the Creeks, for the Cherokees, for the Choctaw, and the Chickasaw Indians, and read those treaties. And then blacks, and all those Indians should have given blacks land. Blacks right now should have the same rights that Indians have. Indians got those damn reservations. Those reservations, they used the 14th Amendment that was for black folk to give Indians those reservations. 2, they should have given black folk $150 each, and they didn't give them the land, the money. 3, black folks should have been permitted to go to any school without paying a tuition. Had all these black kids struggling to go to college and can't afford it, but run up all these damn loans. As they had a right to go to school without paying tuition, just like the so-called white Indians have. 3, they should now be paying taxes, like these white Indians got away for years not paying any taxes. 4, they should have a direct relationship with the government, so they can just go. They don't have to wait for somebody to get elected to office to get their rights. They should be able to go in and negotiate, just like Indians went into the White House with Obama for 12 years. For 8 years, and got what they wanted. Where he gave them unlimited amount of radio license, TV license, and cable system license free. They didn't buy them. Everybody misses over black folk. because black folk don't understand the issues. They don't fight, stand up, push back. When they do try to push back, they always let somebody trick them into using and call themselves some broad, ambiguous group. Well, the minorities, we are poor folk, we're people of color, we are multicultural. Stay away from those damn broad ass names. Only talk about black folk only. And don't let nobody else trick you into going for all these damn broad ass names where you're gonna get a damn thing. You never go into a marketplace or a political arena using some broad ass name. Go in there strictly one shot. I'm here to get reparations for black folk based on Dr. Anderson, called the Harvest Institute 1866 Indian Treaty lawsuit. It's right now pending in the appeals court right in Washington, D.C. We're now filing another appeal because what they do every time we solve one of their problems, they always come up with another damn question they ask you about, saying, well, the law says that you black folk in 1870, you can't come into the public arena looking for anything as a group. You got to come in as an individual. That way we can knock you down and stomp you. And that's part of the code of 1870. Black folk got to learn these things, and hopefully I gave you some ideas in terms of where I think the Black Lives Matter group should be aiming. And I congratulate them for trying hard, for having aroused the public. I've been trying to arouse them now I think I've done a reasonably good job for the last 50, 70, 60 years by providing them with the information nobody else would give them. And it's not in the school system because whites control all the book selection committees for the private schools and the public schools in the United States. They don't let my books go into most of those schools. They don't want black kids and black people to hear what I'm telling you.
Well, you know what? We're listening, and everybody who's watching, I hope that you are letting your kids hear this. This is real education. This is real Black history. This is what we need to know, not what they want us to know or what they want us to think. If you all could do this, please, really quick, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. Also, Dr. Claud+Anderson, his books are at Powernomics.com. That's Powernomics.com. You can get a library pack that has all of his books and a DVD for just $99, and it will educate your family for a very long time. You'll be glad you did it. And if you have extra money, maybe get them as gifts for people that you love. Let them know what you stand for. Let people know that that's your culture. That's who you are. And so also, I want to remind everybody that if you want to know about investing in the stock market, tonight it's the Black Stock Market Weekend. We're doing 3 days where I'm going to break down the stock market with you guys for 3 straight days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Monday, you'll be a different person. You'll have a whole different perspective on how to go and use the stock market to build wealth for your family. So if you're interested, please go to blackstockmarketweekend.com. That's blackstockmarketweekend.com. If somebody could type that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Type blackstockmarketweekend.com and also type powernomics.com. So Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you very much for your time. If everybody could give Dr. Anderson a digital thank you for coming out here. I appreciate this very much. This means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to a lot of folks. So I hope we get to see you again real soon here.
Well, I hope so too. And as soon as I feel well, I'm going to come back again. And also, I just want to make an announcement. I intend to have a board game on the market by this Christmas season called Let's Play Powernomics. And this will be a board game. It's just the opposite of Monopoly, where Black folk learn how to play the game and all the rules, the things I talked to you about. They can play that game and see who comes out and win. Not putting in equality. You're going to win the game. You get rewarded for being the first horse to come in, win, show, or place. If you come in last, nobody cares about that. You out there to win. Quit trying to get along with people and play to win, but play based on self-interest, your own group self-interest. Build your own communities and put a cover over it called covering to make sure nobody can come in and rip you off. I love you and your people, and I'll look for you maybe next week. Okay, buddy?
All right.
For your show.
Love you too. Love you too. And love all of you guys that are listening. We appreciate you very much. And I think that we're making progress here. The word is getting out. We're changing the world, and don't give any credit that you ever want to give to me. Don't give it to me until you give it to Dr. Anderson, because that's when they talk about each one teach one. He's my teacher, so I have to give credit to my teacher. And so you have my respect. And when your board game comes out, I want I want to help you sell the board game. So you just, when it's ready, you let us know, and we'll just have the orders flooding in for Christmas. So God bless you, man.
Right, thank you. You'll love this game.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to play it. I'm looking forward to it. All right.
And have
Well,
a
take
nice
care of
weekend.
yourself. All right, all right. All right,
Bye.
everybody. See you all soon. Don't forget, Powernomics.com is where you can get Dr. Anderson's books. Also, if you want to join us tonight at 8 o'clock in the Black Stock Market Weekend, go to blackstockmarketweekend.com. That's blackstockmarketweekend.com and powernomics.com. See you guys soon. Have a good day. Talk to you later, Dr. Anderson.
Thank
All
you,
right.
buddy. Too.
Bye-bye now.